Members of our car flipping forum may have read Sam Chojnacki's formula for success. When I saw it, I knew I wanted all of us to get to know Sam better. Sam Chojnacki is a true car flipper from the state of Michigan by way of his home country, Poland. I think we are all going to learn today. If you buy and sell vehicles for a profit or you want to, you're in the right place. This is the Flipping Genius podcast. Our number one goal is to help our listeners make more money. Every episode, we share information, ideas, and experiences of real-life car flippers. I'm Randy Lee. I'm the host of Flipping Genius. I've flipped cars most of my life. For over a dozen years now, I've been a licensed dealer. I am working to build the best podcast about successfully flipping cars for a consistent profit. Let's get to it, flippers. Everybody, welcome to the Flipping Genius podcast. We've got a special guest, Sam Chojnacki from Michigan, right?
Yes.
By way of Poland. But
by way of Poland.
Where are you at up in Michigan?
I am about a 1 hour north of Detroit in a town called Oxford, Michigan. So
okay.
Beautiful little town, lots of lakes, and I'm looking outside and it's nice and snowy and awesome.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of snow up north. I'm down in Alabama, so when we get snow, we all have to run outside and take pictures of our house because it only happens once a year. We already had it this year. I already got my pictures, but it doesn't.
So it's I have Christmas lights on the house, and I turned them off about a month ago. And yesterday, when it snowed a lot, I decided to turn them back on and take some Christmas photos of my house with the snow because it was just perfect scenery. So
that's funny. Yeah. I love Christmas. Why not extend it a little bit? That's pretty cool. I'm originally from Toledo, Ohio, and so my family's up there. Some of it. And I get up there, and I've got a couple guys I do a Bible study with in Michigan. We do it via Zoom, and one's up in the Upper Peninsula, and the other one's probably not too far from you. And I know it gets cold up there and lots of snow, and we complain when it gets in the 30s here. You know, it's freezing. I've been in the South a long time. Well, Sam is a car flipper, and I'm excited to have you on because I'm sure my audience is getting tired of listening to Randy Lee stories. We just did episode 106 and 107 we recorded this week. It was a two-part issue. And I try to get guests on, and we've had some great guests, some folks from the car business, some folks. I've had other flippers on like you, but I wished I had more because that's really what the podcast and the car flipping forum is about is talking about buying and selling cars for a considerable profit. And one of the things I loved about what you shared with us on the forum, Sam, was the ethics and common sense that you expressed, which you said it's just common sense, but believe me, I've been doing this for long enough to know that that's fairly uncommon. So that's why I was hoping to talk to you about. So Sam's from Oxford, Michigan, and you said you're kind of a car enthusiast, right? Too. You like cars?
I am. Ever since I was a young boy, I mean, I love cars. So I don't think I'm ever gonna outgrow this stage. Even now, I love it. So.
But see, I think that's a huge plus. Now, you've listened to the podcast some, so you know that I'm not a mechanic. I'm not a car guy, frankly. I'm a deal guy, and I got into the car business. I don't know if I've really talked about it too much, but I kind of got into it by accident. And I enjoy the business side of it. I enjoy being able to create transportation for people at a reasonable price and making a couple bucks on it. And that's what we do at my company, Middleman Enterprises here in Alabama. Now, what do you like about flipping cars?
The profit. But I think beyond that, I just love the thrill of finding a deal, securing a deal. I mean, it's one thing to there's it's one thing to go from finding a car on eBay or Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace anywhere to actually having the car title in your name. There's so much that has to happen between this point and this point. And sometimes you have like 5 minutes of working time before the next guy shows up. And so once, I'll scroll through so many pages of cars and I try all these different ways to be the guys to the punch. But when I do and I have the title in my hand, I'm like, it's mine. So now it's like, now this project mode kicks in. It's like, okay, I spend this much money on this car. Now I know I can sell this car for this much money. So let's say I buy the car for, just gonna throw a number out there, $5,000, and I sell it for $10,000. I have $5,000. So within that 5,000, I can play with $5,000. But obviously, if I spend all five, I don't make any profit. So it's not worth it. So I try to just gonna make a game plan and what I'm gonna do, what this car needs, what can I do to make it the most appealing car ever, and just go for it and just be as honest, as thorough with my approach as possible. And that's what I do. So
yeah, and I know you kind of I think you kind of underappreciate what you do is my gut feeling. That's why I was looking forward to talking to you. One thing that you pointed out early, which is a big one. Now, you like making the profits. You also said that you shared with us online that you've got a pretty good track record for your average profit. What would you guess that has been over the years?
I have a Excel formula, and I'm still working on it to get my good average. And I think I told everyone online that's about 4,000. I think it's closer to 3,000. It's really hard to guess because I haven't been very meticulous with keeping track of my expenses in the past, but now I'm trying to. But I would say it's somewhere between 3,000, and I think I made as much as 4,500.
Okay, that's fantastic. Yeah, I think you said 3 to me, so that's pretty good. And when you're buying the car, you threw 5,000 out as an example. Is that a target that you shoot for, or is what?
No.
Okay.
No, my target is I just threw a random number out there. My target is between $1,000 and $2,000.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you an example. I bought this last October. I bought a 20. So we're in 2021. Last year we're in 2021, and I bought a 2014. So a 6-7-year-old Ford Focus. With the lady just posted it on Facebook Marketplace for $1,500, and within 2 minutes I was on that deal. But no more than 5 minutes, I texted her. I was like, I'm coming. I'm ready to come. Even though I even did not know anything about the vehicle. All I knew is that they have. Oh, she did post that it has transmission issues and it needs to be cleaned up. And I heard somewhere through the branches, through the vine, that these cars did have a transmission problem. So right away, I thought, you know what? These cars, I know there was a warranty somewhere out there. There's a recall on these, and I know they do it. So I'm going to take my chance on it. So first thing I have to do is send her an email saying I'm coming. And then when I'm waiting for a response, I went on, and I Googled all those problems with that transmission, and I knew that that these cars, that affects the 2014, 2015 years. So meanwhile, she texts me back. She's like, yeah, I'm ready. Come on anytime. So I go and show up probably that evening. I show up and, she wants $1,500 and the car was barely drivable. I mean, I took it around the block and it was slipping really bad. And it was dirty inside. It was really dirty, cigarette burns everywhere, and it smelled horrible, just the worst you could imagine. The car was never taken care of. And I was like, you know what? And I plugged in my the code reader, and I said, this car has so many codes, honestly. And I just started shaking my head. No, you know what? The most I can give you is $1,000. Even I knew that at $1,500 I can make a deal, but I was like, you know what? $1,000. She goes, fine, take it for $1,000. I was like, all right, sweet. So she gives me the title. She gives me a stack of papers, and I take it home. And the next morning I called the dealer. I'm like, you know what? I think your 2014s and 2015s are still covered on the recall. They're like, no, I think their 2014s just expired. I was like, well, can you run the VIN and tell me? He goes, all right, what's your VIN? I tell him, and he goes, actually, you still have about 3 months left on that transmission.
Beautiful.
I'm like, exactly. I'm like, all right, I'll be there tomorrow. He's like, well, we're not open until, or whatever. He said 2 weeks from now. I was like, okay, fine. So within those 2 weeks, the weather was still nice because it was October. I went to a junkyard and I found really nice set of seats, front seats for the car. Because I was like, I'm not about to start, cleaning those out. They're too far gone. The back seats as well, they had like dog scratch marks on it and everything. I mean, the seats were like $20 each or something like that. Something stupid. It had a couple dents in the front, so I thought about finding a bumper for it and a fender, but it would have just been too much money, like $500 for the bumper, $300 for a fender. So I said, you know what? How hard can it be to clean that up, to fix it? And I'm a painter by trade, but an interior painter, like house painter, and I have a good paint shop here in town, and I know the guys, and they hooked me up with. I took the fender to them. They put it on a cold machine. They gave me the exact color, and I kind of banged out the little dent on the side, and I bundled the thing on the bumper, and just made it look better than it was, and cleaned it up, painted it. It didn't come out perfect, but I wasn't expecting it to be perfect. It's a Ford Focus. It's not like a Ferrari or something, so whatever.
Right.
It cleaned the interior of it out, really, really good. I mean, obviously changed the seats, and then I vacuumed it out, and I used a steam cleaner to clean everything, all the cracks and crevices, and a carpet cleaner, and just made it look perfect inside. And then took it to the dealer and drove it there. It stalled on me twice on the road coming to the dealer, but when I made it there and they put it on the machine, they said, yeah, it's definitely the transmission issue. We'll fix it for you for free.
Wow.
There was a couple of other issues with it. There was some kind of computer or airbag module to fix, another $700. But I was like, you know what, $1,000 for the car. I have so much room to wiggle. I'm gonna make it, really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So, I didn't want the ABS light on, so I had them fix it. I took it to a guy down the road that I know, a trusted guy. He replaced the CV joints for me for the car. And at that point, the car was perfect. I mean, it was just like a brand new car off the factory. It smelled factory fresh.
Isn't that something? How many miles were on the car?
That's the beauty of it. It was 92,000 miles.
Yeah.
Which is nothing. It really is nothing. So, I mean, the moment I saw it, it said 92,000 miles, $1,500 for 2014. And I mean, that's all you needed. That's all I needed to know. I didn't care about the transmission at the point.
What a great idea! The recall check. That was brilliant. That was a great call.
Yeah, and I asked the lady when I went to buy it, and I asked her, like, does the car? And I knew at that point that the car most likely does have a recall. But I asked her, I was like, does the car not have a recall? She goes, no, I tried, and they said I'm not eligible. And I think she got confused because the lawsuit, the class action lawsuit, expired, I think 2 months before she got to it. So I think she was confusing that with that.
Okay.
So she missed the class action lawsuit, and she thought that at that point she has nothing else to, And all I needed was a simple phone call to the dealer, and
that's fantastic. Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna inject one thing, a little plug for my website. I've talked about in past about our man, hate it when I can't think of words. Our resources page. If you go to flippinggenius.com, on the resources page, if you go down to and you click on the right button, you'll go down and you'll see we have access to a couple sites where you can check recalls for free. And I think that this type of thing would show up. But now you were smart enough to realize a call to the dealer would fix it. But if you had the VIN number in advance, you might have been able to check it before you ever left. And so that's and as a licensed dealer in the state of Alabama, I have to make buyers aware of any open recalls. So it's something I've gotten in the habit of checking, and it's free to check with either of the apps that are on there. You can also check to see the vehicle history to see if it's been stolen, find how many previous owners that it's had. And those are both free checks that are available on our website. I was gonna plug myself a little bit. Man, that's an exciting story. So now have you already sold the car, or are you still working on that one?
No, I sold it. I sold it for $6,300.
Beautiful.
I know, and I cannot kick myself in the butt because I could have sold it for $7,500, but I got too greedy. And here's what happened and I will never do this again. And I shouldn't have done it then. But when she gave me the title, she didn't ask me to sign it over. So I thought, great, I'm gonna skip title, which is illegal. I found that out, the hard way, but it's illegal. So I thought, I'm just gonna pawn it off to the next buyer and then just have him sign it, and I'll tell him that, I'm. So my story was, yeah, I meant to register it, but we decided to change and get a new different car. So blah 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 blah. So you can just sign it over. So I actually did use that story, and the guy showed up, and he was kind of not comfortable with it, but he was ready. I think I had the car for like 8,300 at first, and he showed up. He's like, I got 7,500 cash. And then I started telling him the whole story about the title. He goes, you know what? It looks shady. I'm gonna walk away.
Yeah.
And at that point, I knew I lost the sale. And I mean, on $1,000 with a sales tax of 7%, $70. I mean, come on, one trip to the DMV, it's nothing. I should have done it and be done with it. And it took me another month to sell it at 6,300. So whatever, you live and learn. And I mean,
that's a great insight that you learned. That's a hard way to learn it, where it's actually costing you money. But if you listen to episode, I think 50 and 51, I believe, I had the gentleman that's the CEO of the Alabama Independent Auto Dealers Association, which is I actually work part-time with those guys. And Randy Jones came on and talked to us about it. And I remember I led off the second episode with Randy by pointing out the fact that that when you do a title transfer without owning the title, when you do that, that's actually a felony. And I thought that would scare everybody, but I can tell you this, based on the number of listens of the podcast, how it dipped. People don't really care about the law; they more care about money. But I think what you're saying here is important. That doing it the right way is important long term, and that was another reason you had said that online, and I really appreciate that, and I understand what you're doing, and we've all done. I believe me, I've done lots of things early on when I was just flipping cars before I got a dealer's license. I would do open titles, and I've discouraged people from doing that, and I think that's exciting to me that you've done your car flips where you transfer the title in your name and do it all legal and above board. That's correct?
Yeah. When that person left that day, I said, that's it, I'm done with this. And I went to the next day. I made an appointment to, we call it Secretary of State here. And I mean, $70, and I was like, that's it. That's. I walked away from. I passed on a $7,500 because I was too cheap to spend $70. How stupid is that of me, And so, whatever. It's done and over with. So never do that again. And I understand how it would hurt if you're buying like a $20,000 car, or $10,000 car. You it really eats into your profit at that point. But at $1,000, it's not much. It's laughable. And when you go there and they ask you how much you buy the car for, I tell them the full price. I tell them $1,000 or however much it is, because why cheat? I mean, I don't know. It's just something that I've learned. It's like, what's the point of trying to cheat the system? Yeah, we all we hate paying taxes, but honestly, every time that I told them exactly what the price was, and I did it the full legal way, I had no problem selling the cars at what I was asking, and you can see it in my results: $3,000, $4,000 profit.
And it means a lot to people that you're being honest. And it's funny, Sam, in Alabama, we have the lowest sales tax in the country for a car, only 2% state.
Oh my gosh.
It's 2%. As a dealer, I collect the tax and I do the title work. And it's funny because people will still say, can you write in a smaller tax? And I'll say it's 2%. And when you lie on that, it is a crime, man. Come on, it's just not worth it. And I've never had anybody fight me over that when I've mentioned it. But yeah, 2% sales tax. I was just talking to Randy Jones, who I mentioned earlier, because they're constantly trying to raise that, because we are the lowest. The second lowest state in the union, I think, is Mississippi at 5%. So Alabama is a great place to buy a used car. It is especially with sales tax and no rust. So that's a nice.
Oh yeah.
But
I guess there's no rust.
What a great story, man. That was a sweet deal on a Ford. I mean, and I was wondering how you're going to get out because I'm not a big fan of those. I've seen the problems, but man, that's awesome with the recall and the free fix. And I've had a couple of those myself. That's a pretty cool thing when you.
Yeah, I had one college student that she was very excited about this car, and then she asked me, I don't know, she was asking more details, and I told them I just had the transmission fixed. So I guess offline she Googled the transmission problems. She goes, you know what? I decided to walk away from this car. I said, why? She goes, well, it has the transmission problem. I was like, well, it's all fixed. You're good for another 100,000 miles. And she was just at that point, I lost that one too. She just, no, I'm no longer interested. But it's hard to convince people otherwise. It's like, look, the car is, you could drive it to the moon and back, and it'll be fine now.
Mhm.
So
I mean, so you brought another thing you had mentioned earlier, and you talked about it right there on that one. You made that car look as good as possible. I use two words when I go see my mechanic, because I have my mechanic Dennis Johnson. Johnson's auto repair here in town. He doesn't pay me anything. I advertise it for him all the time, but he's a great guy. And I take the car down there, and I tell the guys, safe and sellable. That's what I'm looking for. What do we need to do to make this car safe and sellable? So I'm truly on the bottom. I've got a couple cars across the street. I know I did an episode one time talking about selling them dirty, because I'm so lazy. I didn't even vacuum them. And I do a quick turnaround, get my money out of them, but that's an approach I take. It's probably not anything like what you would do, because I can just tell you,
no,
steam cleaned it and stuff. You're trying to get that thing to look as good as possible. Can you elaborate a little bit about that? Is that what you always do?
I this is 100% what I always do. Always. I don't think I've ever sold a dirty car. I mean, last year I bought a Dodge Dakota 2006. No, 2 years ago I sold 2006 Dodge Dakota. So that was what, 14-year-old car in Ohio, and it was dirty, and inside it was a landscaper's car. It was just, I mean, you could imagine, it was just nasty inside. It was just nasty, gross. First thing I did is I put my hazmat suit on. But when I brought it home, I was like, this carpet is too far gone. I can't work with this. So I actually took the seats out of it. I put them in my basement, and I shampooed them for like, I probably spent like 10 hours shampooing the seats.
Hmm.
I took the carpet out. I bought a new carpet online. And by the time I was done with this car, you could literally eat off the floor. And I wouldn't even literally eat off the floor because you'd make it dirty. But I mean, it was so clean. It was pristine. It was brand new. It smelled like a factory fresh car for 2006. And so I posted really nice pictures on Craigslist or Facebook, wherever it was.
Uh-huh.
And this lady showed up. The effect was, the lady showed up. She hands me cash. She didn't even want to take it for a drive. She goes, here you go. I'm like, well, do you want to take it for a drive? She's like, no, no, no. It looks good. I'll take it. I'm like, okay. I mean, it was unbelievable. It's
That's
crazy. It was like, yeah, I wasn't expecting. It was the easiest sale I ever made. I mean, I bought it for 1,500 and sold it for 35.
uh-huh. And mostly you
Yeah,
just had labor into it. That not a lot of.
just labor. Yeah, just the carpet, and I think, oh yeah, it did. It had a what is it called? Front CV, not CV joints. Uh, ball bearings.
Mhm.
The knuckle needed to be changed. That took me quite some time. But I mean, the mechanic wanted to charge me like $800, and I was like, nah, I'll do it myself. And it probably spent like 4 hours on my knees working on it. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's worth it.
That's beneficial when you can do the work and you are not lazy like me and you will do the work. To not only do that mechanical work, but to make them look pristine like that. No doubt. I brought somebody in to detail one of my cars the other day, and it made such a difference on that one. I got one clean one over there right now, and three dirty ones. I think I may try to step my game up a little bit.
Yeah, I think that the word that comes to mind is integrity. I mean, if you want to make the car clean, I'll clean it. I'll go to town. I know I'm not gonna get paid an extra dollar if I take the seats out and clean in the crevices. But for me, it's a satisfaction of knowing that the car's 100% clean. When you take the seat out and clean all the little stuff underneath, and
Mhm.
it just makes it look beautiful. And I mean, yeah, you go the extra mile. No one will ever see it except me, and it makes me happy that I'm selling a 100% clean car.
See,
So
I think that's your Polish heritage right there. That
I don't
sounds
know, maybe.
like my grandpa, and that's good for you, man. That's awesome. I try to step up my game on this side so I can represent better. Um, how many cars would you say you flipped over the years?
I am, I am actually, I was writing in the middle of it on my Excel. I am on my 39th, 40th car in my 20 years of driving, 20,
Wow.
since 1998. Hang on, 1998. So what is that? 22 years. I am on my 39th car, 40th car right now. And I think half of them are flips.
Isn't
So
that
20
cool?
cars.
So you've
Yeah.
had sometimes you drive them and keep them for a while and then flip them.
Yeah. Sometimes I drive them and yeah, exactly. Just like that.
Huh,
So
that's pretty cool. And
I have an Excel sheet and I have bought what month I bought it in, where I bought it, where I purchased, distance from home, model year, make, model,
uh-huh.
bought for, repairs done to it, sold for, profit and loss, sold, and when did I sell it? Then what kind of transmission it had, engine size, cylinders, and all that sort of. I'm a data geek, so I like to see kind of
Oh,
everything. And
yeah, I actually do that too. That's beautiful. You've missed that word loss in there. How often do you
profit loss.
how often do you come across one that you shouldn't have bought?
I had one. I had one that I wish I didn't, and my wife keeps telling me, she's like, "I told you not to buy that car. I told you not to buy it, and you bought it, and you should have listened to me." So there goes that one. Yeah, it was a car out of Florida, but it was a car. So I kind of after that, I've learned two rules after that car. So those two rules are: don't buy a car you want to flip. The car you want to flip, don't buy the car that you want,
Uh-huh.
like for yourself. If you want to buy a car for yourself, because then you have an emotional attachment to it. Buy a car you really don't care, you absolutely don't care about.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Oh
So
yeah.
that's rule number one. And rule number two is do not buy a car if you don't hear it run.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what I've been having to do lately because of the prices at the dealer auctions and stuff are just crazy. So I've been buying them. I think you heard my podcast about the insurance auto auction. Uh, the first week I went there, I was able to buy cars. I went and spent some time looking at them. I was able to listen to them run in person. The very next week, because of COVID-19, they closed it down and said I can't see them in person anymore. Uh, and they give you a 10-second clip of the engine running. You can hear it run for 10 seconds. If you can tell something on a video about it, uh, I try, but that is a real shot in the dark. And I did buy I bought I think three that way, and I did okay. I got one that's a little weak, but we'll probably still make a couple $100 off it. But yeah, that's a real good rule to have. Don't buy it unless you hear it run. Um,
Yeah, that one was so it was a Volvo V50. Yeah, V50 it was a T5 version, so like really whatever souped up and whatnot. Not souped up. It was just a higher powerful engine. And I always wanted that one. I was like, you know what? I found one in Florida, and like they wanted like $2,000 for the car, and it said needs a head gasket, and just kind of said there abandoned. It had like 70,000 miles, and then I was like, this is all the numbers are perfect, other than it doesn't run. Needs a head gasket. I was like, well, it can't be that hard to do a head gasket. I contacted a local mechanic. He's like, yeah, I'll do it for you for like I don't know whatever. He said $1,000 or something. I said, all right. So I had the car shipped here, $700 to get it shipped all the way to Michigan.
mhm.
I get it up here, and the guy starts taking it apart. He goes, "Oh," I'm like, "What?" Oh, he sends me a picture of the cylinder was completely rusted through. He goes, "You need a new engine." I'm like, "What?"
Oh,
He goes, "Yeah," and he says, "That's an extra $2,000 plus the engine. You got to find the engine." I'm like, "There's no way. This is crazy." And so, what had happened was it had a coolant leak, and it said, or a head gasket leak, and it sat there with the coolant inside the engine. And at that point, it just ate away at the walls, and it was done. It was done for.
yeah.
So and lucky, unlucky for me, it was right when I lost my job due to COVID, and so I had all this free time and to do this. So I found a guy not too far from me here who was selling the engine
Uh-huh.
for the car, and I started putting it in. And I mean, literally, it took me all of March, April, May, June, July to get this engine in there, and this car just fought me tooth and nail. It just did not want to be on the road.
Huh.
I mean, I put first the engine and then the head gasket. I mean, replaced the heads on it. Then something else broke down. Then I had to do that. It just fought me for so long. And once I had the engine up, I'm lowering it down, and the jack slipped and it hit the oil pan, and the oil just
Oh,
brand new oil just spilled all over the ground.
oh man.
So got that taken care of. I take it on the road, and the clutch went out. I think something got wedged in there, and the clutch completely just burst open like 2 miles into the drive. So towed the car back home, put it up on the lift again, take the transmission out, put a new clutch in, get it in. Then an electrical issue. It was just one thing after another.
Oh
But at that
man.
point, I was like, I'm gonna see this through. I spent an ungodly amount of time on this car, but I was like, I have to get it done. I can't leave it as is. I'm so far into it. You just have to.
Oh
What do
yeah.
you do? And this was, I was unemployed. I was at home, and I was like, all I have is time right now. And this car, I just have to see it because this is my lifeline. If I get rid of it now, I'm gonna sell it to a junkyard for $1,000, maybe, whatever.
Right.
But I just have to see it because I know there's profit at the end of it. Well, profit, whatever. You can't even call it profit at the end because of
Right.
all that time I spent on it.
Sure.
But I was like, I know I'm gonna I'm gonna sell it for $6,000, $7,000 because of low mileage, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So once everything was fixed, I was just so happy. I just left the car. I was like, leave my house. When it was leaving, I was just doing leaps and bounds in my garage because I was like, you just go,
I know
get out
that.
of my house.
I know that feeling. So in the end, you wound up making a net profit.
Yeah, I ended up making profit, but I don't even know if to call it profit because of all the hours I spent. If I added all the hours,
Oh
so
yeah.
much hours were spent on the car. You can't even call it profit at that
Oh
point.
yeah. If you don't count your time, I guess is what I'm talking about. But well, that's a horrible story. But you wound up turning it around. Good for you. I've lost money on a lot of cars, but I usually do a quick loss. I know I'm losing on it, and I'll run it through a public auction as is, or through the dealer auction as is, or call a junk guy. But I get in so cheap. That's the thing. You were already in a little deep because you paid for the transport fees and stuff too. But that's an interesting story. Yeah, Volvos can be tricky, no doubt. Huh. Well, I mean, and only one out of all those. That's pretty awesome, man. You've got some skills. Oh,
I
another
mean,
thing.
I'm looking at the right here. Let's start in 2018. I bought a 2000 after the Volvo. Let's see, where's Volvo right here? I'm looking at the map. Volvo, yeah, profit on that car was $1,300 maybe.
Uh-huh.
Then the next one was $8,000, $1,600 profit, $2,200, $3,900 for that. That one's not technically sold, but I know they'll sell for that much. $1,800, $3,600,
Yeah,
$4,000. I
that's
mean, that's my profit right here.
that's very very nice. So you try to do what, maybe two a year?
No, I probably 4 a year, maybe once every.
Okay.
I buy and sell 2, 3 months.
Okay. About four a year. And in the state of Michigan, is there a limit on how many you can do? Is it four or five, or
It's
every
six,
six? Okay.
six,
Every state's
six.
got their own limits. Okay. And another thing you mentioned to me that word that stuck in my head is patience. That you were patient when you went to sell. Uh, can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I beat up my I beat up the seller on the front end. When I buy the car, I try to negotiate as low as possible because I've read in the book that and I stuck to that model that you make your money when you buy, whether it's real estate or cars or something. You make your money when you buy. So
Absolutely.
I know if I can beat up the seller right at the front, and then work on the car and really enjoy like cleaning it out and like making sure everything kind of works, making it perfect or as perfect as it can be.
Hmm.
And then I set the price up really high, like 8,000 or whatever. It doesn't matter what the price is, but I set it really high and I just sit there for a while.
Hmm.
And I mean, I'm in no hurry. I just sit there and maybe lower it down just a little bit, and just kind of gauge where the interest is as people
Hmm.
text me, hey, is the car available? Blah 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 blah, and just lower just slightly, and I sit there again and lower slightly and sit there again until I got somebody to,
Hmm.
and I just sit there because I'm not in a hurry to sell.
Yeah, such a benefit to not have to sell. And oh, absolutely, you make that money when you buy it. And I this past week, the episode that came out on Wednesday of Flipping Genius, I call them 10 tools that I use, and one of my tools is a website that it has made me a lot of money because it saved me money. It's carpart.com, car/part.com. Yeah, 'cause
Hmm.
I gave one example. I headlight off this Lincoln that I have. You could buy it for $500, or you could buy it for $40 at different junkyards, and I find our local junkyards will just, and I don't mean to disparage these guys, but they'll just lie to me because I'll call and say, "Do you got this?" I'll drive over there. They don't have it, and I have to stomp around the junkyard to find out they don't have it and waste half a day. And I can call someplace in Wisconsin or Maine or Florida, and they'll ship it to me for $20 and sell it to me for half of what I could buy it locally. So that's any money you spend, try to fight to keep it. I'm not really telling you, Sam. I'm telling other people to listen to us. This Flipping Genius thing is kind of amazing. We started it beginning of 2000. We got listeners in all 50 states in 55 countries around the world. There's people buying and selling cars, and they want to share their ideas. And the car flipping forum is something that it came up with, uh, just exactly so I could meet people like you, and you could meet other people like you, and share your ideas and share your struggles and tips and anything else that helps. And anybody who's not a member, you can join for free. Just go to Facebook groups and search Flipping Genius, and you'll find that group there. And it's, like I said, it's free to join. I just ask you to answer a few questions so I can gauge whether or not you're going to try to steal all of our identities. It's nuts what happens online these days. Other thing that I talk a lot about is becoming a car dealer, because that's one thing I get a lot of questions about. That is that anything of interest to you?
Yeah, there's a guy in my church. He is a car dealer, and I'm actually talking to him about some kind of partnership, but in a partnership in a way that's advantageous to me, and I don't have to spend a lot of time. Um, so yeah, I'm discussing that. I'm thinking about it. Yeah,
That's a
but
great idea.
I'm on such a low level. I don't buy and sell, buy and sell. I'm on such a low level. Honestly, I was thinking about this. If I was to become a dealer and I was to do this full time, one thing I would always do is I would buy all my cars. I would put all brand new tires on the cars,
Hmm.
brand new tires, because my car, people I want to sell to is people that depend on this car. Like I want like the lower end cars,
Right.
the cars that'll sell, but I want them to be as safe as possible for that single mother or whoever that really depends on this car to take them to work. So I
Hmm.
want the tires to be perfect. I want the brakes to be perfect. I want suspension to be good. Whatever, it has some scratches and stuff. That's when it doesn't matter. But I mean, the car has to be, like you said, safe. Or what is that word? You safe and what?
I say safe and sellable.
Safe and sellable. I mean, that's what I would think. It's yeah, tires are a big thing for me. Like you have to sell a car that's.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's exactly what we look at. And then I use, full disclosure. It was funny today. I had a call from I've got this old Ford Escape. It'll get you around town. It's got a lot of little stuff wrong with it, like the key won't come out of the ignition. I mean, it'll start, and we're afraid if we pull it out, we'll destroy the whole housing there. Um, and it's got a crack in the windshield. I'm selling it, probably it wind up with less than I paid for it. It was one I shouldn't have bought. And um, shoot, I hate it when I forget why I'm talking about it. That's that's a problem you may have in another 25 years, Sam.
Safe, safe and sellable. Yeah,
Yeah, this one's, I know, a guy called me, and he said he wanted to come look at it with his mechanic, and I said, let's not waste your time, my time, or the mechanic's time. And we talked a little bit about about these problems that I disclosed, and he was so thankful to me for being honest, because he wasn't going to ask me any questions, so I asked the questions for him. Turns out he wanted to buy a vehicle so he could go on the Appalachian Trail. So obviously this was not the vehicle for him. Um, Did I lose you, Sam? I don't see your picture. Oh man. Well, it looks like we might have lost Sam. What a great time that was. There he is. He's coming back. You got your mic is muted. Good man.
Okay, sorry about
Yes,
that.
I'm glad you're back. I was having to do a solo bit there. But the guy I was telling you about, he it turns out he was trying to get a cheap SUV so he could carry a bunch of people from his church down to the Appalachian Trail, and he was gonna be climbing, and they were gonna be following him in this vehicle, which I wouldn't really trust to drive to Nashville from my house, which is about an hour away. I told him, if you're driving to the grocery store and then the church and then back to your house, you'll be okay. But and I was just so glad that I full disclosure, it's the only way to go. My dad said always do business so you don't have to worry who's on the next line aisle at the grocery store. And that sticks in my head every time I go to the grocery, because my car lot is literally across the street from my house. My grocery is a half mile from me, and I see people that I sell cars to all the time at the grocery. And you go down that next aisle, if you're selling junk and not lying, lying to people, uh, you probably get punched in the face every now and then. So I'm always happy that's how way I've always conducted business. Ran to one guy there who said, I said, "How's that truck doing?" And he said, "It blew the engine." And I said, "You're kidding." He said, "Don't worry." He said, "You told me the engine would blow if I drove like a fool." And I had actually put a warranty on it, so he got $1,000 to go towards the replacement engine. They found one in the junkyard and put it in themselves. And they said they came out $150 ahead. So,
Oh, cool.
so that was a good story. He shook my hand and went on with his shopping. And as a matter of fact, I think his brother bought a car from me. It's been years ago, so sometimes I wonder what's real and what's in my dream memory. But that's a whole nother story. Well, that's an interesting thing. You mentioned something about maybe doing a dealership partnership, and that's something that I've talked about with other people, and it's another good thing to put out there on the car flipping forum and see what other people have done similar to that. Because there are things you can do. Of course, then you have to look at your state regulations, because every state is different, significantly different. But man, Sam, I really appreciate the information you've shared with us. I think everybody's going to love hearing what you had to say. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, it's I remember years ago I went to visit my dad's friend over in North Carolina, and oh, there you go. Years ago I went to visit my dad in North Carolina, my dad's friend in North Carolina, and he was at a car auction buying cars, buying and selling. He was a dealer, and like he was eating popcorn. I mean, that stuck out to me. He's eating popcorn and just buying this car, that car, and thousands are flying through his hands, and I'm like thinking like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But like nowadays, I kind of get that. It's for me. When I buy a car, I guess one nugget is don't get hyped up on the car you want. You want buy the car they want, and
Hmm.
by they I created in my head a core audience that I'm gonna sell to, and
Hmm.
I buy that kind of a car. So in my head right now, the car I'm gonna sell is for a and first time driver and yeah, first time, and they just want a car to drive and not give them any problems. So that's the car I buy, and
Hmm.
you know, and it works. And
That's
yeah,
great advice. Yeah, yeah, it really is. And I have the good fortune of basically not really even caring about cars. Now my problem is I like Cadillacs and Lincolns because for something stored in my brain when I grew up. And Cadillacs, the ones that I are in my price range are just well, my mechanic made me swear it off, so I'm not allowed to buy Cadillacs anymore. So that took care of that problem. But yeah, buy what they want, not what you want. That is a great tip. Hey, I think we put together a pretty good program. I'm excited about sharing this with everybody. And like I say every time, hey, let's work together. Let's make some money. Let's all become flipping geniuses. Thanks, Sam.